everybody. Happy Wednesday, first Wednesday in February. Someone was saying to me that this is officially the start of spring. I'm not so sure. I leave it up to the experts to worry about that one. I hope people are keeping well. Today I'm accompanied by my Nashville mug. It's a big one, so that's when you know you need a lot of coffee. So I suppose today's one, we're going to take it as a bit of a follow-on from last week's device special. We got a lot of really positive feedback from that one, where people were saying that it really hit home and was applicable to their situation. I got a follow-up email from a listener, and I appreciate you sending the follow-up. So the email's a bit of a long one, but I think it's a good one. And what it does is it gives us the platform to talk about something a little bit extra when it comes to parenting that we don't necessarily talk a lot about. So we'll crack into it. And this is going to be the one that we're going to deal with today because it is a discussion point. So I suppose we'll kick off with the school nights. We generally have the kids turn off screens around 7:30, 45-ish. My youngest child goes to bed around 8:30. And my older two go between 9:15 and 9:30 p.m. This may seem early, but remember they're up before 6 a.m. Anyway, on Thursday evening, screens went off at 7:30. My daughter got ready for bed, and she generally reads for about 15 to 20 minutes before lights out. That night, she came down to the kitchen just after 8 p.m. and said she was ready to go to sleep because she wanted to be well rested for school the next day. Now, before you think I'm completely naive, there were some special activities scheduled for the next day as part of this Catholic Schools week. I was also in the middle of cleaning up the kitchen, so my mum radar was not operating at full capacity. I said, okay, I'll be up in a minute to tuck you in. Her dad and I did and came back downstairs. I noticed her hair ribbons on the kitchen counter, so took them up to her room. As I'm walking in or out of her room, I hear some sort of talking. I pause and ask, what is that? She replies, it's my brother. He must be watching a video game. No, I think that sound is coming from your room, I replied. So I walk over towards her bed and see the faint glow under the covers. I pull back the covers and find her tablet. I was so disappointed. I confiscated the tablet and said to her, we will discuss this in the morning. Good night. I did not yell. I was honestly too taken off guard that my angel had deceived me and tried to throw her brother under the bus. I think I've been more upset by the fact that my youngest, my baby, had deliberately lied and had been sneaking than over what she had actually done. We've had this issue multiple times with our boys trying to use electronics when they shouldn't, that I'm honestly a bit immune to the crime. I really do feel like I've lost some last piece of my kid's innocence or something. I can't really put it into words, or that it makes me a bit sad. Kind of like when your youngest starts school or something like that. There was a calm discussion on consequences, but the innocence can't be regained. So like I said, that was a bit of a long one, but it's obviously something that really impacted on this mother. And what it highlighted for me was that, one, when it came to managing the situation, the mum did a fantastic job. She didn't get into a shouting match. She didn't yell. She was able to take the step back, leave it for the next day, because what's the point in shouting and roaring at a child when they're just going to bed? You're just going to upset them, upset yourself, and all that's going to happen is there's going to be, I suppose, disharmony for the evening. So what she did was she handled it really, really well in the moment. But what struck me about the email was her feeling sad for the loss of the innocence of her daughter. And it's something that, like I said earlier on, we don't particularly talk about very often when it comes to our children. So, but we accept a lot of people will say, oh, I can't believe my child is going to start school. I can't believe my child is becoming their own being where they are going off and making decisions for themselves, going to secondary school, getting a device, all that kind of stuff. And it can be something that parents will say as a throwaway comment, but it can actually have a big impact on them and can have a big impact on their children if it's not managed as best as you possibly can. So, okay, this answer is also not in relation to this email as such, because I've been back and forth with this listener, and we've discussed how well she managed the situation and how she can kind of move this forward. But it was more the spark in me around our own sense of loss as our children grow up. And now some people will say, well, loss is a bit strong because you've nothing to grieve for, you've nothing to complain about. Your children are growing up as they naturally would, and that is absolutely true. But I come across a lot of parents who they put so much of their own emotions and their own contentment and happiness in their children that when they move on stages, they find it very, very difficult to manage that, because it's almost like my child is leaving me, and they take it almost like a personal insult or a personal hurt. Now, they don't blame the child. They're not turning around and going, why are you leaving me? But within themselves and their own narrative in their head is very much around, I'm being left behind, and I put so much time and effort and love into loving you, and that I really can't cope with you growing up and becoming your own individual person, and I struggle with it. Now, for a lot of parents, they won't do that for the whole time of their children's lives. Like, it would be a fleeting thought process, or it would be a fleeting emotion that they'll experience. But it is something that we do need to start to manage for ourselves, so that we don't wrap up our whole lives in our children. Now, look, we all love our children. We all would do anything for our children. We would jump in front of a bus for them. We absolutely would. But we also have to look at our lives and not have everything about our lives revolving around our children as best as possible. Now, you may be sitting there going, Alan, that's grand, but you don't have to drive to 15 different activities during the week and cook dinner and all that kind of stuff. Absolutely fine. I fully accept that. But what I am talking about is emotionally having your whole life wrapped up in your children and how they do. Because then what happens is, what can happen is that we become so wrapped up in our children's success that it almost, we take the reflected glory for ourselves. So haven't I done such a fantastic job because my child is doing so successfully? And I'm not saying don't do that, but we need to allow our children to grow. We need our children to be able to go out and fall over and not wrap them up in a bubble because it actually hurts you that your little angel has been hurt. We need to allow them to fall over, cut their knee. We need to allow them to get, into disagreements with people and experience what life is like, because then what happens is we're not preparing them for life. We're not preparing them for life, and that's part of our job. So why I felt it was something that was important is to say that, one, it's okay to feel that way. I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm saying it's absolutely okay to have your emotions and feel the way you feel about your children. But if you're finding that if they shout at you, or if they want to, not spend time with you, that you don't take it as a personal insult, that you don't talk about maybe how selfish your child is to your child or to other people, that you don't start to put pressure on them to spend time with you, because they need to grow, they need to spread their wings, they need to be able to experience what life is like and find out who they're going to be in this world, because they may not be mini you. So in the short term, what they might do is you might share interests, which is fantastic, but they might grow away from that, and that's okay too. And they may make the wrong decisions, in brackets or inverted commas. They may make the wrong decisions, but they're their decisions to make. They're their mistakes to make. Now, obviously, you need to keep them safe. That's essential, But it is important that what you do is you allow them to live with the consequence of their own actions. So you can support them and support them and support them and encourage them and encourage them. But if they choose a different path, let them choose the path they want. They may turn around and go, why did you let me choose that path? But that's their choice. They make the decisions as best they can. Now, I'm talking as they get older, not when they're little kids, because little kids would probably eat sweets all day and stay up all night if they could. But we're talking more about the process of them growing up, And the flip side of it, what can happen is that we start to absolutely dread the teenage years or them going to school. And like literally people dread it. They start to really get so engrossed in what might happen. My child, I hope when they go to secondary school they don't turn into this horrible, monster who shouts and roars and slams doors and steals money and takes drugs and has unprotected sex and, all this kind of stuff. When they could only be in, 9 or 10 years of age. Just manage where they're at and try and support them as best they can. You may have a child that does all that. That may happen. But what does worrying about it now do for you? It doesn't do anything, because when it comes to this situation, you'll deal with it as best you can. Now, it's one of those things that nobody wants to have to deal with, but that's life, and you cannot do anything about it except put the boundaries in place so that you give your child the best possible chance to make the right decisions for themselves. But don't grieve for your child growing up. Don't grieve for your own loss of your child growing up, because we need to allow them to be able to leave home at 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 years of age, whatever, and go out and look after themselves and start their own life. And then we can have a completely different positive relationship with them, where what we're doing is we're spending time with a person that we actually like to spend time with, who is their own individual, who has the ability to look after themselves, who wants to spend time with us on a different level, where it's not, I have to spend time with my parents, I have to spend time with my parents, where it's more, actually we get on, and maybe they'll come back to the interests that you had in the first place. So I know it's difficult to, talk about emotions and having emotions wrapped up in our children when it's a real thing, okay? Because we love them. We love our children more than we'll ever love anything on this planet. But if it's completely and utterly about them, then we lose that sense of ourselves, and they begin to influence our happiness, because we have wrapped up all our emotions in what they do and how they act and how they become and how they turn out. So if you're finding that that's the case for you, maybe it's something to kind of look at and kind of go, okay, well, maybe I just need to take that little step back as best I can and allow my child the flexibility and freedom to make their own mistakes and live with the consequences of taking a tablet to bed and watching it under the covers, and it's something that you guys are going to laugh about in years to come. The innocence is part of growing up, and that innocence drifting away is part of growing up, and it's okay to be disappointed and sad at it, but if it overcomes you and takes over everything and you begin to get so sad or so frustrated that clarity is gone, then you need to look at it. Okay, that's us for today. Just the one. But I hope it gives people some new learning. I appreciate the feedback as always. I think we will be back next week. And don't forget the Patreon page, patreon.com/LOW podcasts, where you can help support these podcasts on a weekly basis. And we're getting ready for our new podcasts that are coming up, which I can't wait for, but can't talk about just yet. So yeah, please do help support it. If you've got the price of a cuppa, I'd really appreciate it once a month. It makes things much better, because my equipment needs updating pretty much. So until next week, guys, have a good week and take care.